evening. Welcome to the September 26th meeting of the Oshkosh Common Council. If the city clerk would please take the roll.
Bulow?
Here.
Hayes?
Present.
Esslinger?
Here.
Erickson?
Here.
Ford?
Here.
Stevenson?
Here.
Mughawar?
Here.
7 present.
Invocation will be led by Councilmember Bulow this evening. Thank you.
We ask for guidance tonight as we begin this meeting. May all those who participate in our discussions reflect the values we cherish in this great city.
This evening we have students from Lourdes Academy High School here to lead us in the pledge. We have Allison Stromsky and we have Estella Marshall here. Ladies, if you wouldn't mind stepping up, I'll come down there by you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you again for coming here this evening, ladies. We have, again, we have Estella Marshall from Lourdes Academy. And we have Allison Stromsky as well. If you wouldn't mind, maybe tell us what grade you in are at Lourdes and a favorite subject already. We just started school a few weeks ago, but maybe if you've got one already, so.
My name is Allison Stromsky. I'm in freshman and I like biology.
I'm Stella Marshall. I'm also a freshman, and my favorite subject is math with my teacher, Mr. Deneen.
Nice. Well, thank you again for coming this evening, parents. Thank you for bringing it. Much appreciated.
Download it.
Have a great night. Next up, we have a presentation this evening. We have Wisconsin Historical Society 2023 Board of Curators Museum Exhibit Award for the Oshkosh Public Museum's exhibit Helen Farnsworth Mears, a Genius of Wisconsin. Okay.
We're ready.
We are.
Yeah, you're up.
Don't even get to take a breath.
So I'm just getting myself oriented here.
You can go this one. Yeah, right there. Well, welcome.
Thank you, it's a pleasure to be here. My apologies for being a little late, or late. Getting out of Madison was too tricky today. A little less busy than usual.
Can you hear me? Night? Are you recording this too? Good, excellent. I'm Christian Overland, the Ruth and Hartley Barker Director and CEO of the Wisconsin Historical Society. And it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight, the City Council, Mayor, City Manager as well too, and the leadership of the Oshkosh Public Museum. Thank you for inviting me to join you tonight in celebrating the Oshkosh Public Museum's terrific exhibition, Helen Farnsworth Mears, a Genius of Wisconsin. It's a temporary exhibition. It's commemorating 150 years of the artist's birthday. And what we're really happy about is this exhibition is a hallmark of what we think is great public history. Every year, the Board of Curators, which is the Wisconsin Historical Society's governing body, recognizes outstanding historical work in public history. And we do so with the point of looking at how these experiences that people create connect people to the past in a compelling and significant way. Now, the Board of Curators Exhibition Award, which we're talking about tonight, is looking at how exhibitions get developed fully from the interpretation, the collections being used, the collections management process of a museum, to actually the exhibition design. And so the idea here with this exhibition that we're really talking about and honoring is not only just doing something that was being held inside of the museum's archives, it was contributing to it in an unusual way in history. In 2017, the Oshkosh Public Museum acquired the Mears collection and did so in providing and utilizing that archive to tell the story of Helen Farnsworth Mears in a significant and compelling way. And one way that we really liked is that it does so in a local, state, and national history context, which is outstanding work. Here, I'm with you tonight to talk about that in a couple of ways. One is the scholarship that the museum did offers something to the canon of Wisconsin history. Helen Farnsworth Mears, great sculptor and Oshkosh sculptor, did a huge body of work, but things that represent not only just Wisconsin and the 1893 Columbian Exposition through her work, but also looking at American history. She sculpted the great general George Rogers Clark, for instance. And so through that work and through the great exhibition that was done by the Oshkosh Public Museum, I'm here on behalf of the Wisconsin Historical Society and our board of curators to congratulate the leadership of Sarah Phillips, Executive Director, Director of Exhibitions Emily Rock, Chief Curator and Assistant Director Anna Kinzana? Canizo, thank you. And Archivist Amy Bells. Thank you for the work that you have done. So, if you indulge me, it is my honor and a privilege to be here in the city of Oshkosh to present to you tonight in the Oshkosh Public Museum the highest award the state has as far as exhibition development work in public history. So thank you and congratulations to you, the City Council, all the residents. The community engagement of this project is outstanding too, because the exhibition delivers great, compelling stories, not only of a pathway to the past, but we believe a future pathway into a wonderful, inspirational life for people to learn from. So, Sarah, would you please come up? My honor to give this to you on behalf of the city of Oshkosh and the city of Oshkosh. Well done.
Photo.
Where do you want to?
Yeah, get it.
Yeah, you got put the city of Oshkosh.
You can cover us up. That's
Interrupt, I will, but.
no photo mommy.
Thank you. Congratulations. I know that goes on the wall, but the individual contributions have been insane. So the state of Wisconsin, thanks you. Thank you for indulging me tonight to visit with you, and it's been a pleasure. And please, if you have not seen this exhibition or have seen it in the past, get some photographs and a copy.
Well, thank you for
Thank you.
being here this
Thank you,
evening
sir.
to present that.
It's my pleasure, again, I am sorry.
No problem.
No worries at
It
all.
was actually perfect timing. It was just build suspense.
Thank you so much. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're moving on to citizen statements to council. I don't have anybody registered for that, but can I get clarification? So the two people we do have registered to speak this evening are registered to speak on number 36, and that's under council discussion, direction to city manager, future agenda items. Should they speak now, or will we, this is that one kind of gray area-ish. This is normally reserved for council discussion amongst ourselves and with the city manager, but it's an agenda item as well. So
The council is typically permitted public comment on those issues.
before those,
Wants to know if you
should I have them do it now or just before
now or
that?
at
If
the-
you want to amend the agenda, it just takes a two-thirds majority.
I think it's kind of up to you if you want to take the comments now or if you want to just pound through the rest and then take them when you
If
take that
memory
item
serves
up.
me-
I think you can do
Okay,
either one.
we'll take them up as when it comes up. We shouldn't take too long to get there, so. As there's no citizen statements, we'll move on to consent agenda. I'll take a motion and a second on consent.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilmember Bulow.
I'd like to pull item number 13-23-487, please.
All right. Any other discussion or anything else that needs to be pulled? Seeing none, please take the roll on consent minus 23-487.
Hayes, I'm sorry, Bulow.
Aye.
Hayes.
Aye.
Esslinger.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Stevenson.
Aye.
Mughawar.
Aye.
Carried 7.
23-487, this is approved conditional use permit request for an adaptive reuse of 2501 Harrison Street. Plan Commission recommends approval. Take a motion in a second.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Bulow.
I have no issues with this item. I'm just recusing myself. I'm on their board, and I don't want to have any appearance of impropriety.
Thank you very much. Seeing as there's no other buttons pressed, go ahead and take the roll on 23-487.
Bulow.
Present.
Hayes.
Aye.
Esslinger.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Stevenson.
Aye.
Mughawar.
Aye.
Carried 6.
Pending ordinances. Ordinance 23-500 approves zone change for property located at 500 block of West South Park Avenue between Ohio Street and Michigan Street. Plan Commission recommends approval. Take a motion in a second.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion. Please take the roll.
Bulow.
Aye.
Hayes.
Aye.
Esslinger.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Stevenson.
Aye.
Mughawar.
Aye.
Carried 7.
Before I call it, the next two have multiple asterisks. Are we
They were
anticipating action on?
revised. They were just revised with some wording.
Okay, thank you. Next up, ordinance 23-501, approves zone change from single-family residential 9 district, SR 9, to institutional district for property located on the south side of the 100 block of West Custer Avenue. Take a motion and a second.
Move it.
Second.
It's actually first
Yeah.
reading.
Oh, this one
Yeah,
is,
first
this one is first reading, but it
Yes.
was revised. I apologize on that, so we'll rescind those. First reading on that. Next up, first reading, 23-502, approves zone change from 2 flat residential 10 zoning district with a planned development to a central mixed-use zoning district for the property located at 17 East Parkway Ave. Next up, ordinance 23-503, amend parking regulations on north side of Ripple Avenue from Oregon Street to West Terminus. Transportation Committee recommends approval.
So moved?
Nope.
Also just a
Yep, all these
Yeah.
are, all of them now.
We're just listening to
All
the
for, yeah.
Take it back.
Ordinance 23-504, amend parking regulations on west side of Brown Street from Algoma Boulevard to High Avenue. Transportation Committee recommends approval. Ordinance 23-505, amend parking regulations on Union Ave at Algoma Boulevard. Transportation Committee recommends approval. And final new ordinance, first reading, 23-506, amend loading zone to bus loading zone on north side of New York Avenue from Kentucky Street to Central Street. Transportation Committee recommends approval. Now on to new resolutions. Resolution 23-507 approves spot blight designation for parcels 04022, 40000, and 0402223, 0000 on the 600 block of North Main Street. I'll take a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Bulow.
I just want to say this is absolutely fantastic to get those designated, and then we'll talk about what's going to happen with those later, but I think it's an absolutely fantastic thing.
Kelly, do you want to add anything? You don't have to, but if you want to add anything on this one, floor is yours if you want it.
Nope, this is the RDA recommended approval, and so I think it's a great next step to make more of that block developable and add more value to the city.
Seeing as no other buttons are pressed, if you'll take the roll on 23507.
Buelow?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Erickson?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Stevenson?
Aye.
Mughawar?
Aye.
Carried 7.
Resolution 23508, approve acquisition of properties located at 656 North Main Street, parcel 04022400000 and 04022300000 in the amount of $300,000. Take a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Don't all hit them at once. Councilman Resslinger's up first.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple questions. The cost of the purchase, this is community development block grant funds, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Who determined the $300,000 value?
That was a discussion between city staff and the broker who's representing the property. We discussed it also with the RDA in closed session to discuss the price that we wanted to offer.
Have we ever assessed $300,000 value to blighted property before?
Well, it's 3 different parcels altogether, so we have. There's been quite a few properties that, if they are a key piece of the puzzle of a redevelopment area, and we would like to, combine them with a larger redeveloped area, we have paid upwards of $300,000 before in the past.
The building that's there, I'm assuming that would be raised, is that correct?
That is correct.
And who would pay for that?
Community Development Block Grant.
Okay. In your opinion, do you feel that the person that's going to take over this property, do you believe that they would pay $300,000 for that property had it not been community?
They actually had an option with the owner of the property for $350,000.
They had an option, but they did not.
That's when the city came in and we said, in order to try to, move this along faster, we would, pay for $300,000. We would pay for it right away, get it off the books. And regardless if that development with Commonwealth goes forward or not, we want that property because we believe it will have a positive impact on that development on Jefferson Street.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess where I'm going here is I certainly, the property's terrible. It needs to be fixed up. I have no problem with that. I'm just, $300,000 value, there's no way that property is worth $300,000. But to further, why wouldn't we purchase that property and put requests for proposals? I'm not saying that what the person wants to do is good, bad, or indifferent. I don't really know, to be honest with you. But why wouldn't we allow other developers or other individuals the ability to do what they thought would be good there also?
Well, we actually did. The RDA did do a request for proposals for our Jefferson Street redevelopment area this summer. There were multiple proposals received, and they did choose Commonwealth Development to redevelop that whole block. So Commonwealth wanted to move forward, and they, as I mentioned before, obtained an option to purchase that for $50,000 more. And the city came in, and we have these community development block grants, and in an effort to try to chip away at their request from the city to fill that gap of financing, we said, let us use our CDBG funds to pay for that acquisition cost that you had figured into your pro forma that you would be incurring. So the city sees it. We've been trying to go for that property regardless. When you look at it, it's $12 per square foot, which is not out of lines with some of our other purchases in that Jefferson Street area.
Do we have any contamination issues on the property?
We will be doing a phase 1 before we purchase it.
So who would be responsible for cleaning it up if there are some found?
If we decide to move forward, that will be one of the contingencies is the phase 1. So we do have an out if there is something dramatic that is found that, we don't want. But like all the other central city properties in the city, we deal with the contamination. We work with the DNR.
So are you saying then if there is contamination, we will make a contingency that the developer pay for
No.
remediation?
Nope, we did not make that a contingency. We said we wanted to do a phase 1, but if we feel that there's some items on there that we do not want to deal with, we could walk away from the deal. However, we would make that determination with our environmental consultants to see if it's something that we could easily handle, which we have a lot of experience with.
What would you say would be something that we would walk away from the deal?
Sometimes dry cleaners. That's always a fun one. Storage tanks and other, kind of more normal contamination issues, we do those regularly. So like I said, we would take a look, assess the situation, see if there's grants out there also to help with the cleanup of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Actually, Councilmember Stevenson, you can go before me. Go ahead.
Sure. I really like this acquisition. I wanted to maybe throw it to you. Do you want to speak a little bit to what the CDBG funds are? Because they are a unique funding source, and I think it's important for people to kind of hear what those are for. And
Absolutely. So CDBG, Community Development Block Grant, is from our federal HUD agency, the Housing and Urban Development. The city of Oshkosh is an entitlement community. We receive roughly $800,000 to $850,000 a year. Mainly it's for slum and blight removal. We also help public facilities and low-income areas. We also help housing. So we use our funds in a lot of different ways. And it's something that, from a staff perspective, we also, we have multiple years of funding, and sometimes we have the funding left over from other years, and we have to use it up to ensure that we keep getting that annual allocation. So this is actually a great use of our funds to kind of get that money moving, and it will remove some blight along North Main Street.
thank you. And I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. We have this money. We need to spend it right on projects for removal of blight situations like this. And we also have the added benefit of affordable housing potentially coming in this location.
Absolutely.
So I think it's a great use of funds. And as far as contamination goes, it's Central City. We've dealt with it in a few areas. I think this is probably going to be a great brownfield or CDI grant application, something in that vein. But there's definitely, I think it's a good project. I commend you for getting this. So.
Thank you.
Seeing there's no other buttons, I'll go. Councilmember Esslinger asked a handful of very good questions there. They're pointed questions, and they need to be asked. They need to be answered and make sure that those things are talked about. So I appreciate those being asked. I couldn't agree with Councilmember Stevenson more. It's a great use of these funds. Whether, and quite honestly, whether that development goes through or not, us having control of these properties is extremely important to that space down there with all the other land that the RDA and the city owns. The value-wise, it's Main Street commercial property, so it is valued higher than Jefferson Street property. So I'm not concerned by that, and it's a great use of those funds. As you mentioned in RDA meeting, it checks nearly every box possible for you guys in terms of the use of these funds, and that's a really good thing. So just want to say fully supportive and looking forward to something new and exciting possibly coming on North Main Street.
Absolutely.
If there's no other comments, if you'll take the roll on 23-508.
Bulow?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Erickson?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Stevenson?
Aye.
Mughawar?
Aye.
Carried 7.
Resolution 23-509, approval of non-contractual sanitary sewer rates for wholesale customers. Take a motion in a second.
Move it.
So, second.
Any discussion? City Manager Roloff, do you want to give us just a quick hit? I didn't ask you to do this ahead of time, but a quick hit on why we're doing this or what we're doing here?
We are in the process of renegotiating contracts with the surrounding sanitary districts, the towns that surround us. And by the end of the week, all of those contracts will have been expired, and we feel it's appropriate that we enter into non-contractual rates to basically something market-driven, PSC, the Public Service Commission, to a standard that they've approved, and essentially to keep the process going so that they know what the rates are going forward, and then hopefully we'll be able to reach agreement sooner with the surrounding townships on a permanent agreement, which I would anticipate would have a less rate of return.
Okay. Well, I appreciate all the work city staff and outside consultants have done on this, as well as the potential for contracts going forward. And I think this is a good thing, adding this into our rate structure. So if there's no other comments, please take the roll in 23-509.
Bulow?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Erickson?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Stevenson?
Aye.
Mughawar?
Aye.
Carried 7.
We're moving right along. We are at council discussion, directing the city manager, future agenda items. We do have 3 registered to speak to this, number 36, direction to staff regarding water filtration, clear well building facade, and Lakeshore Drive alignment in relation to the clear well replacement project. So before council starts their discussion, I will invite up Mr. Bill Wyman first, followed by Kirsten Buckstaff, and then Chris Anderson right after that. Good evening, Mr. Wyman.
Good evening. You guys are working fast. I thought I'd be sitting here an hour before I got to this. This is great. My name is Bill Wyman. I live at 1373 Wagoo Avenue. I also own the Waters, which is at 1393 Washington Avenue, which is directly south of the Clear Wells project, so I'm a neighbor. First, I want to thank the city staff and the council for everything you guys do. The time and effort you put into this every day working for the city makes a difference, and I appreciate it. So I think a lot of people appreciate everything you do. I've been around a long, long time. I've talked to worked with a lot of consultants. I've talked to a lot of people in this community, and everybody says over and over that some of the benefits, top benefits of this community, it's the water and our parks. Those are two very, very important things, and we need to keep them really nice. The clear wells are a necessity. I don't think anybody's doubting that we don't, we're getting a federal law or a state law that we have to do this. So I'm not opposed to the clear wells, but we got to make sure that we do it right and keep the area beautiful. Landscaping and trees are the key to this project, I believe. Landscaping and trees will soften the hard walls and the fences and make everything look nice. I was on the ad hoc committee, which was a group of, I think, 9, 10 people, 7 people. We met in May throughout the summer. I think we met 4 times. And we talked about a lot of the things Linda brought up were more of the physical types of the buildings, but it kept coming up about landscaping and the roads and what the whole thing is going to look like, not just the building. And landscaping was key, that we have to keep it nice looking. We got to hide the obtrusive building right next to our park. We got to soften the landscaping. Another thing that came up in the ad hoc meeting was looking at the big picture. And we should look at more than just the building, the fence, and the street in front. We should also look at the whole south of Menominee Park, because you've got new tennis courts, you've got a zoo with a new bear exhibit, you've got the Little Oshkosh, which is now all redone, the play area. We're going to have a new beach house. There's talk about additional parking on Merritt Street. So there's a lot going on right around that area. So I think we should look at the big picture, not just one little thing. So the ad hoc committee brought up the idea of having a landscape architect to bring in someone from the outside that's a professional at this type of thing and look at the big picture. And we were told by James and Lynn and everybody else that that's going to happen, which is great. They brought up things like fence lines and driveways and parking and pipes underneath the ground, stuff that the ad hoc committee probably wasn't even aware of, but the need to have a landscape architect develop a big plan. So what I'm concerned about is tonight or sometime in the near future, you as a council are going to have to decide the width of the roads and how many parking spots, and you're doing it in a tunnel vision. You're not looking at the big picture. You're not being brought a professional view of what the whole place will look like. I've seen some of the drawings that the ad hoc committee saw, and I think it's in some of your packets. It's not it's nice, but it's not a professional done thing. So I guess this project is going to be a 2-year project. So I don't understand why you're going to have to make those decisions tonight. People think that I'm opposed to parking. I'm not opposed to the parking. In fact, my father's 96 years old. He comes down to that area of town. He parks by the lake and he watches the sailboats. So I get it. The parking is important. It's just I think that there has to be a huge plan for everybody to look at everything, where the trees are going to go, what the views are, how many trailers can be parked. It's bigger than just 16 spots in that area from Carl Schurz to the boat launch. So that's all I want to say, and I think it's important to look at the big picture. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, Ms. Kirsten Buckstaff. and then followed by Chris Anderson. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks. I'm Kirsten Buckstaff. I'm at 1212 Washington Avenue. I know it's probably really difficult to metabolize what's being presented to you in such a short version without a lot of visuals or background. I had submitted a packet for you to look at, so maybe you had some enhanced versions to have that visual to see what we're actually talking about instead of a thumbnail sketch. So my purpose here is to address the aesthetics, the facade, as well as to advocate for appropriate landscaping. In reviewing options for exterior building aesthetics and features for 2 rectangular above-grade clear wells and center pump house, please consider option 5, the most appropriate design selection. In approving the precast concrete stylized tiles of sturgeon and manumin, which is wild rice, to be placed at top border on clear wells and upper center panel on pump station, the city of Oshkosh can reinvent the perception of the South Lake Shore Drive area and the treatment facility, cultivating a 21st century discourse of cultural literacy, historical context, and collaboration. This is an opportunity utilizing art panels as enhancement features to tell a story, conveying cultural messaging. I strongly urge the council by invitation or bid to welcome the designs and artwork created by a tribally affiliated Wisconsin artist. Rewrite the narrative of shared public space, supporting indigenous identity, pre-settlement history, and popularity of aquaculture, highlighting our most important natural feature, Lake Winnebago. Rewild the shoreline and public shoreland properties, native-scape dedicated green space with managed designed plantings indigenous to our site at the western shore of Lake Winnebago, where the easternmost boundary of the American prairie terminates. Minimize impervious pavement and proposed parking spaces, thereby reducing runoff into the lake and storm drains. Here we have an opportunity to revive a source of community pride and value. Cultural engagement further develops the utility, quality, and ethics of the project. Please refer to my site concept handout for exemplary standards and landscape architects which must be employed. The incongruity of numerous slated long-term projects in this tight area will be glaring if professional development is not utilized prior to confirmation of projects. Option 5, culturally relevant and mutually supported. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are we able to ask questions?
You can. Sure.
Okay, awesome. Just one question. Thank you, Kirsten. You mentioned that the panels were designed by tribally affiliated artists. Can you expand on that?
No, I did not say.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I suggested, and I'm sorry if that was not clear, in our discussion at the ad hoc advisory committee, it was thrown around a lot. We had so many things to discuss, and one of those features was the exterior, the facades of these 2 clear wells, which will house our water. They're above grade now, as you can see, and the pump house, or pump station, which is in the center of those clear wells, facing the lake aspect on South Lake Shore Drive. With input, Linda Moore, who was a project head at Jacobs, with this suggestion, went to her design team or architects, and they kind of created these precast cement panels with artwork. They're kind of incised with the sturgeon appearing as if they're swimming in a natural state. The center panel, which you can't see very well, but on the handout you can look at a tighter diagram and see how that would look facing, and that would be the manumin, the wild rice. Now, my suggestion would be to, whether, like I said, whether it's by invitation, contract, or bid, access tribally affiliated Wisconsin artists to do that work. There are a number I can think of right now that have worked within the city. I don't know if that's appropriate to say right now, but there are a number to do this work, and it would highlight, like I said, our indigenous Native Americana here in Oshkosh, which is very important. The Oshkosh is our namesake, Menominee name. And I think it would be a point of pride and education to see this. And I'm not saying that the panels would be, right now it's white on white, it's the incising you can see, but it could be maybe colored or have some color added to it to highlight that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Mr. Chris Anderson. Good evening, welcome.
Chris Anderson, 2708 Harrison Street, Otter Street Fishing Club president, and I also was on that ad hoc committee. You know, a lot of the things that the other two had said, you know, I agree with, you know, with that. Basically, what I'm trying to do is represent everybody that recreates on the ice. You know, so we would like to maintain both those boat ramps that are on, the one that end at Merritt and then the other one on Lakeshore Drive, just for access, you know, to get out there for, you know, spears, ice fishermen, anybody that snowmobiles out there, and then also trying to maintain as much parking as we can, you know, especially with, you know, on just day-to-day operations where you only have, on like a weekday where there's maybe 20 vehicles that go out on the ice. On a bad year, they're not parked, you know, on the ice, they're parked on land. Then we're not backing them up into the neighborhoods and then causing complaints and things like that. Also would like, you know, to keep that road open, which that's on all of the, you know, there wasn't any option where it was not on there. And then just keeping both the landings open and maintaining parking, especially when we start looking at the beach building, you know, and things like that. So all of a sudden, you know, we're going to add more traffic down to that area, and just being able to have it so everything flows decently with everything, and there's not as many issues, you know, throughout the city with people dragging sleds down or snowmobiles down the road at 5 o'clock in the morning past somebody's driveway. You know, if we can kind of keep them all out in that area, you know, obviously the bigger events we're going to be, you know, further back, you know, with things, but, you know, just for the main, you know, portion of the winter with that. So that's basically all that I had to say about it.
I have a question for the gentleman.
Go right ahead.
Sir, so you're on board with what the aesthetics, whatever it looks like, the
Yeah.
building, you don't, that's not your deal?
Yeah, no, I think it looks great.
Okay.
I think the options, you know, that we have, you know, that were brought to us and we kind of voted on, I think those look great. You know, I'm more worried about, you know, keeping our boat ramps, which they're both on there on any occasion. And then also for trying to maintain as much parking as we can, you know, along there, just for the people that recreate out there. And even, you know, like even during the summertime, there's a lot of people that park there and eat their lunch or park there, you know, and won't walk. And I think once that's redone through there, it's going to kind of coincide with the rest of the park, you know, with the walkways and stuff and all, and kind of it'll clean up that area very well.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Oh, did,
No, I'm still on from
oh,
before.
my bad, I didn't clear that. All right, just give me 1 second. I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Quick refresh. All right, so that's all that's registered to speak this evening. So now it's for council discussion and direction.
Yeah.
Councilmember Ford, what's that?
I think there's another one to speak.
Is there anybody in the public that wished to speak that did not register?
I did register for citizen statements. Somehow or other it must not have-
I don't have anything. Was it for this topic, though?
No, it was actually for the beginning of the meeting. But, I can wait until after you.
Let's wrap it, let's let us do this, and then we will give you a spot to do that. I didn't have a registration, but we've always made an exception if somebody's here and wants to speak, we will absolutely do so. Is that okay? Appreciate it. So let's, Councilmember Ford, I think has the floor on this topic.
Yeah, just a question for city staff. The, you know, it says in this, the staff report, the, you know, critical design elements, we need to do that to avoid corrective action with the DNR. Is that primarily the facade and the pumping house, as was cited in here?
Yeah, that's getting the actual structures for the clear wells and the pump station and the infrastructure within the fence.
Okay.
Moving forward, so we can stay on schedule with our corrective action plan.
Okay. I asked that very specifically, and maybe this is for my colleagues, and I don't mean to set the tone of the conversation, but given what we just heard, and the division between the Advisory Parks Board and the ad hoc committee on the landscaping, et cetera. I think it's logical for us to hire a landscape architect and deal with the parking and the road and all that stuff later if we can, because that seems to be what the ad hoc committee came back to us with, and focus on the facade tonight to make sure that we stay on track.
You can certainly do that. Typically, as I've worked on these types of projects before, we would try to, nail down what parameters we're giving those particular design professionals so that, they have some focus. That's why we were looking to get some direction on what your preferences may have been for Lakeshore Drive so that we could give that landscape architect when we bring them on board. So, all right, here's the direction. Now we need to work on designing the landscaping, the other features to accomplish those goals with kind of that direction in mind. So it was trying to provide the focus just to try to reduce or eliminate some of the back and forth, which can add ultimately exponentially to the cost of a contract.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that, and again, I suggest it because, dealing with, the parking issue in particular, we have disagreement among these two committees, and I'm thinking back to like the Oshkosh Corp, where I remember sitting in those committees, where we had bunch of joint meetings with the Parks Board and the Plan Commission because it impacted us both. So maybe there is a path forward here, so we're not starting out a project that's going to have an impact for the next 50 years with hurt feelings and bitterness.
I think staff feels strongly about the parking, but we also recognize that the creativity of a good landscape architect may try to figure out how to reconcile these issues here, and I welcome that.
And I think that it'd be more palpable for individuals to see it and how that parking would look. And I'm guessing it'd be incredibly disarming for them to have an actual visual and see how the parking might be incorporated into the site.
I agree.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Mike would say here. I guess, were you guys, I don't know how much direction I want to give you. I think I would like to see the visuals, and I think the public deserves the visuals from a landscape architect. I would like to see, instead of telling you I don't want a road or getting where, or I do want a road or something where we get into a debate up here on that, I'd like to see maybe those options. What does a no southern road look like? Or what does a full road look like with parking and those handful of options that I think a landscape architect can come up with? I know that maybe adds a little bit to the contract, but I think the visuals people would like to see, and they would like to be able to debate those. So,
Do you mean something in addition to the visuals that were provided to you tonight?
yeah, I'm going to be honest. I think those visuals are a little engineering for me. I'd like to see something a little bit more with landscaping and with something that is done by a landscape architect, not just done by, you guys did a good job with the tools you have, but it is just kind of a bare bones, more of a road project rather than a park project. And I'd like it to feel more like a park planning project rather than us planning a street.
Councilmember Bulow.
Just wanted to say, as I indicated with Ms. Buckstaff, I do think it is very important that we do get input from tribally affiliated artists on this project when we're dealing with the landscape architect as well. The number of land use acknowledgements that I've heard in Oshkosh over the last 5 years seems like they fall pretty numb if we're not, taking that input when it really comes to push comes to shove.
Deputy Mayor Erickson.
Thank you. I'll echo what Councilmember Bulow says. I think consulting with the tribe would be important on this, and kind of collaborating with them if we choose to go with option 5. I think as far as direction goes, I'm supportive of option 5, given kind of the significance that would provide that area and the education. Yeah, and one question around Lakeshore Drive, that piece of it, would that be widened at all, that street, or would it stay about the same width that we have it right now?
I think generally speaking, most of the layouts that we've prepared right now are a little narrower than what currently exists.
Okay.
Depending on, whether we go with parking or not, depends on what kind of width needs to be maintained. Certainly if we have parking, we need to be able to maintain a 24-foot drive aisle for pulling in and out of parking spaces. But I think generally speaking, what we've laid out is narrower than what is currently out there.
Okay.
Councilmember Esslinger, you're up next.
Thank you, Mayor. I almost said Mr. Walling. Oh, my God. I'm getting too old for this. Wow. Okay. Mr. Roloff, you asked for direction tonight. I'm not sure you're going to get much direction from just listening, and I think I echo what the other council members are saying. I'd like to see some more, and by the way, all these renderings here, if you put these in a hat and picked one out, I'd say, let's go with it. I think they're all fantastic. I would like to see different, kind of giving opinions here. I would like to see some type of Indian theme, but that's just me. Who did the work for the Highway 41, Butamore, the murals and all that stuff on there?
I would have to.
That was the Oshkosh Public Museum.
Oh, really?
That was taken from artwork. I had given that assignment to Brad Larson, so thank you.
That
The
one's
museum's
fantastic.
gotten a lot of love in the front end of the meeting. Those came from the museum. That artwork that you see outside of Two Brothers?
Yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's where it
okay.
came from.
So we have two distinct differences here. One is the aesthetics. Again, whatever here, I'm okay with whatever. If we come up with something else, that's fine too. The parking, quite frankly, I don't know. I don't know if you're looking for, I don't know if we should have it or we shouldn't have it. I think the parking there, the gentleman from Fishing Club talks about the use of it, certainly in the wintertime, I know it gets used heavily, and then in the summertime, you drive by, you always seem to see some people parked there. So, it seems to be, it gets used. If it goes away, is someone going to care? Obviously, some people will. So I don't know what to do with the parking thing yet. I think the staff has pretty much said that they're in favor of the project with the parking, some type of parking there. Am I correct in that?
Staff and the Parks Board both agree that the parking needs to be, that amount of parking needs to be maintained. We know from experience that whenever there's a lot of lake traffic, that there's backup into the neighborhood, and our concern is that the backup would happen more frequently without that parking. With that said, I respect everything that Mr. Wyman and Ms. Bugstaff pointed out. We should take a look at what our landscaping options are before we finalize that. So we were looking more for, I was anticipating, we're still going to hire a landscape architect, but we wanted to do it with the understanding that we needed to maintain parking. Then we can work with, the citizens still. And then the other thing we're looking for is, tell us 1 or 5. Staff does not have an opinion on that. That is, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. You heard some compelling arguments. If, it sounds like the group here, the group was divided kind of equally during the discussion, right, James?
On the facade.
On the facade, yeah.
On the facade, yes. And I think, as far as the actual, what, if you were to say, go with, the decorative panels of option 5, that doesn't also mean that we can't, engage an artist to come up with something different than what we have currently shown. The discussion around the sturgeon and the wild rice was something that was had at the committee level, and Linda and her team took that and came up with a concept. But, to engage somebody to do a design for that panel, knowing that if that's the way we want to go forward, we could take that direction and then start working on securing somebody to help us design what actually goes on the panel.
And I want to clarify one thing I said earlier, when you had asked me about the designs over on the wall by Two Brothers. That was a museum. When you got onto the bridge itself, that was not a city project. The state did approach the tribes historically inhabited this area, and that was their input. So I love the ideas. I think Linda would be happy to say, yeah, you can let somebody who really knows the artistic part of that do something, and cost-wise, it's negligible.
Right.
I wouldn't even say one's more than the other. They're about the same. Don't worry about that. We got a bigger sell job to do with the rectangular tanks and having us get the PSC to approve that. That's my bigger concern.
Yeah.
It's not the negligible difference between 1 and 5. That I would appreciate direction, though, the more artistic or the more, I don't know what you call one, but lean towards 1, lean towards 5. If you could give us that, that'd be great.
So I want to be on the same page with everyone here. So what direction did you get, or what direction didn't you get yet? And what are your next steps then?
1 or 5, I'd like direction on that. Option 1 versus option 5, that's in your packet. And Ms. Buckstaff showed it in her packet as well. And then staff would request that we keep the parking and seek landscape architect renderings to maintain the same amount of parking we currently have. The locations, I don't think, Chris, I don't even think Chris and the Otter Street group really cares. They just want to make sure that we have accessible parking available for people who use the lake.
Yeah.
And so I was,
But there will be additional parking maybe with the beach house on Merritt Street. So you're already going to add 34 spots. And
I think the beach is going to be another issue that we're going to have to look at, and I think you're going to get more demand for parking. Parking is going to be a challenge out there.
Councilmember, I don't want to put you on the spot, but Councilmember Hayes, I'd like to give you an opportunity, if you'd like, before other council members go for their second time.
I'll just briefly state that I agree with Citizen Buckstaff and Councilperson Bulow. I want to have the Native voice be a part of the artistry that is represented. I also believe that, so option 5 is where I'm leading. As for Councilperson Stevenson indicating that it would be nice to have more visuals, I am a visual person, and I, at this point, am in support of having as much green space as we can. But I still want to have a professional weigh in on that to determine if it is possible to maintain the level of parking while also having our green space options being told to us by a professional.
Councilmember Ford is up next.
Yeah, I'm sorry to go twice. I just wanted to clarify a couple things. I mean, first off, this issue of the landscape architect, I know we got a few contacts like yelling at us like, why aren't you doing this? We had committed to doing this, and it's always been in the plan. So it's, I mean, if we're going to do it, we might as well use them. I certainly sympathize with the fishing community here. I'm an avid ice fisherman myself, and yeah, the park's meant to be used, and that's a massive draw for us. So whether it's on this property or the beach building or wherever, that needs to be part of it. But want to make sure that we have the, want to make sure that we have the ability to present this to our residents. Given the amount of investment we've already made in this, both in time and money, things that our ratepayers are willing to pay, I think it's worth that extra step to make sure that we're utilizing that landscape architect. And then last but not least, I mean, I suppose what I'm hearing from the crowd here is 5. I'm not a visual person, but I can read, and people want to incorporate some type of visual elements into those buildings and certainly want to honor our Native American heritage. So if it's 5 that allows that to happen, I'm fine with that.
Councilmember Bulow, you can go before me. Go ahead.
Okay. Whenever given 2 options and one of them is prettier and you're telling me that it's not going to cost a whole lot more, I'm going to go with option 5. I think it's, I mean, in 20 years when we're driving past that, I'd rather have, you know, art on the wall that reflects our heritage rather than just another set of bricks there. So I think it's an easy option 5 for me.
Sounds like, okay. Councilmember Stevenson, you can go before me as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify too. I like 5. If we wanted to incorporate some of the, or reach out to the tribe and see if there's an artist that they can maybe get to put some stuff together for that. I think that's a great idea. That would be a really cool aspect of this project. Like I said, I don't really want to give any direction on parking. Sorry. I would like to see if I'd like to have the parking, but I also like the green space. I'd like to see how we can incorporate those 2 things together. So that's, I think, kind of where I stand on both of them.
Sounds good. All right, time for me, it sounds like. So first, to the ad hoc members that are here in attendance, as well as those that are at home, just a thank you for volunteering. Thank you for doing, you know, good work on behalf of the community and trying to give us some guidance, give us your thoughts and reflect what, you know, a wider range of the citizenry thinks about this project and try to help us, you know, do as best of a job as possible. So thank you for the efforts and thank you for being here tonight to speak to us. I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit. It does sound like there is direction on at least facade in some fashion, basically something with artwork on it. It does seem like there's at least 4, if not 5+ that say, put a add a visual element to it to help break up the industrial look of it, or the the monotone type look. I'm fine with that myself, so I'll support that concept along with the rest of my colleagues. In terms of the other parts of this, so there's 2 other chunks. Both the ad hoc committee and the Parks Department agreed on Lakeshore Drive North, alternative 1. There was agreement, am I correct on that? There was agreement on from both committees on the north side looking as alternative 1 shows. It would be good to give direction to staff to let that be incorporated into the plan. Where they diverged was basically the south part. This is closer to the Waters, the building, the Waters building. Access to the lake is an important thing for this community. We are very unique that we have this wonderful natural resource right here on our banks. And being able to access that freely and readily is an important feature that sets Oshkosh apart from plenty of other communities. So I would not be in favor of removing parking. I'd be absolutely in favor of leaving the parking and figuring out as best as possible what to do with the rest of the land. It may not be received well, but please keep in mind, our options are extremely limited. I know people know this, but sometimes you've got to say it really bluntly. This is a narrow piece of land no matter what we do with it. And underground, the underground utilities, the underground infrastructure we have makes it very challenging to do anything above ground. That includes plantings. You can put all the trees you want in front of this building, but remember that most of those leaves are going to fall off come October, and this thing's going to be able to be seen for the rest of the year. So we can do anything we want and everything we want. It is still going to be a very large building on our lakefront. It's okay to acknowledge that. And I'm okay with this building being in that location and being built the way we have it currently drawn up as rectangular tanks, because it provides us clean, safe, reliable drinking water. And I won't move from that position at all. So I understand the idea of the landscape architect. That's fine. We've paid plenty of consultants to draw up plans that cost quite a lot of dollars. I'm not in favor of spending too much more taxpayer money on this project. We already had a willingness to spend several $1 million more to go from round tanks to square tanks. But if that's what the rest of the council would like to see, I'm supportive of that. But I'm not supportive of removing parking. This is access to the lake is important, and access to that area is important. I understand that future construction projects may or may not be happening. Unfortunately, those aren't in front of us. That's not a guarantee that something else will or will not happen that may or may not require more spaces. At the moment, I got to make the best decision possible, and this tells me we try to keep as much parking in that space as possible to support those who use the water and those who access that space in that area. Because as I think City Manager Roloff mentioned, if we remove spaces there, it will only push those vehicles and those trailers into the surrounding neighborhoods and impede their quality of life at times. I'd like to keep them as close to that spot as possible. I think that's about all for my random thoughts. I think Deputy Mayor Erickson would like to follow me. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Just a clarifying question. So currently, if I'm counting right, there's currently 48 parking spots in that area, I think? Both northern
that
and
sounds correct.
between
Yes.
north and
I think it was
south.
32 on the north portion and 16 on the south portion, if I remember correctly.
Okay. And I think based on the Parks Board recommendations, that would go down to 39 with 23 on the northern end, 16 on the southern end.
Yeah, the northern end, with the design, there was a loss of 9 spaces on the northern end, and that's where the alternative that maintained parking on the southern end maintained the same number on the southern end of 16. but there was a loss of 9 spaces on the northern end options.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Stevenson.
I'll be done after this. But yeah, I agree with the need for parking here, but I think with what are the few of the citizens and maybe what Bill was trying to get at here is that I think our scope of this project is very narrow. We're looking at there's always going to be 16 spots in this southern area, always going to be 39 or whatever it was in this northern area. I do believe with some creative redesign of looking at a broader area, you could bring 16 parking spots to even to Menominee Park further north if you wanted to, or to maybe along that street edge of the Clearwell. I mean, I'm just kind of shooting from the hip here, but I do think there are places we can get those spots, or if it's even on the southern end, but more creatively positioned. I think there are ways we can maintain the amount of parking we have here, but also provide green space. And green space and screening to the Clearwells.
So one of my not so superhuman challenges is always to interpret the discussion out of 7 into 1. What I'm hearing is you want to see as much landscaping as possible. You want to maintain the parking, and Supervisor Councilmember Stevens said they take a look at the larger picture. So those are the things that we will look at. And you know, staff bias about that because we know that it's going to get. We know this area is going to get used. And when we get that beach house, if you haven't seen a rendering, preliminary rendering, it's awesome. And demand's going to increase. I just had somebody bugging me the other day, when are you going to reopen the beach house? It'll get reimagined. It'll be because of the cooperation of the very people that have testified tonight, and I really appreciate that. We will work with them. We'll go with a facade 5 with a little more, we'll put a little more zhuzh on it, getting the input from stakeholders who have a better view on that as well, but it'll be 5-ish rather than 1-ish. 1-ish, clearly, that's an easy one to take away from this discussion. So I appreciate the input. I think we're okay to move forward. Appreciate all the input everybody's given tonight. This is what we do. It's not pretty sometimes, but this is what we do.
No, and to wrap it up, I also, it's once in a generation that we're going to do this. We do have to get it right. I don't want to come across as though I'm trying to be fast and loose with a plan or to just accept what's being given to us. It is important to try to get this thing right on the first try because it's expensive to undo if we don't. But I have full faith and confidence in the city manager and his staff to take the guidance he received here tonight and keep the path moving forward. So, if there's nothing else on this topic, we're going to allow one more citizen statement. 5 minutes. Feel free to address us.
Yes, Kevin McGee, 1244 Wisconsin Street. I did register, I think, last Thursday, but apparently there's many a slip, twix, cup, and lip. I bought my house on Wisconsin Street 40 years ago, and when I did, we had parking on just one side of the street, which made a lot of sense. The street was only 28 feet wide, and that's wide enough for 1 lane, 8-foot about parking, and 2 10-foot driving lanes. And that's how it remained for 39 and a half years until this spring when the city reconstructed Wisconsin Street. In doing that reconstruction, the city had 2 really reasonable options it could have chosen consistent with its policies. Wisconsin Street north of New York is classified as a local street, so it could have been constructed at 32 feet wide. That would have allowed for an 8-foot parking lane and 2 12-foot driving lanes, which is exactly the configuration that is on New York Avenue, for example. That would be less than ideal, though, because a 12-foot lane is rather wide for a residential street. To put that in context, 12 feet is the standard width for a lane on the interstate highway. And so 12-foot lanes, that does encourage people to drive a little faster than one would want in a area with children. The other option, which is consistent with the city's policies because Wisconsin Street carries a significant amount of traffic, would have been to build the street at 36 feet and then allow parking on both sides. That would be 2 8-foot parking lanes and 2 10-foot driving lanes. And again, that's the 10 feet driving lanes that we've had for 40 years. It's also the configuration on Wisconsin Street just north of the area that was constructed. And it's been that way for at least 30 years between Bent and Murdoch. What the city actually did, though, was construct the street to 36 feet and then keep parking only on one side, which leaves a 28-foot wide, clear piece of concrete, basically 2 NASCAR quality driving lanes for people to zoom up and down. And we have had a lot of zooming because people see that wide expanse of concrete, and anyone with a lead foot feels the temptation to put the pedal to the metal. Well, I don't think that makes any sense. We, the taxpayers, paid extra for that additional width. We, the property owners, have been assessed roughly an extra $1,000 per household to get that extra 4 feet. And what are we getting out of it? We're getting a racetrack. I think that's wrong, and my neighbors think that's wrong. I have here a petition signed by 43 members, 43 residents of Wisconsin Street between New York and Bent, asking that the city allow parking on both sides of our street. These 43 residents represent 33 households along the street. That is 72% of all the households along the street. And if you set aside the 7 households who either never answered the door or were unsure how they felt, 85% of the people on Wisconsin Street who had an opinion on parking wanted parking on both sides. Either way you measure that, that is a landslide. So overwhelmingly, the citizens along that street, we're not asking for anything special or unusual. This is a normal amenity that the city provides. Parking on both sides of the street whenever the street actually allows it. And we're asking, you built the street to 36 feet, you're charging us for it, let us get the amenity that it provides. So thank you very much, and who should I give this to?
City clerk would want to accept
I'll
that.
take that.
I was just going to ask if you plan to submit that to her, so thank you for that.
Yes, yes.
She can take that.
And we'll refer to the Transportation Committee.
Okay. I was just gonna-
Parking
Thank you.
hasn't been changed there. It's been one side of the street, so the request is to allow it on both sides of the street. That's appropriate for the Transportation Committee. I do want to correct Mr. McGee on one thing. You are not getting assessed for the extra 4 feet of width. The city, general taxpayers are paying for it. You're not being assessed for that. So I wanted to make sure you understood that. So the bill's not coming for about a year, Kevin, so I wanted to make sure you're not,
Yeah,
people seldom call me and say,
it may not be coming right away, but, you know, it's hanging over my head.
I hear.
Quick question, Kevin, if you don't mind. So I was part of the Transportation Committee when New York, to try to slow down traffic, they put in your speed signs and different alternatives like that. Just so we can give direction to Transportation Committee, and so they can, is that something you'd be looking for if the parking wasn't possible? Like, I just want to know your thoughts on, 'cause it sounds like your main objection is the speed, is that correct?
Well, it is the speed, but it's also, there are advantages to being able to park on both sides of the street. When you have an out-of-town guest and they need to park overnight on the street, if you have parking on both sides of the street, they can do that. If not, they have to go to a block or two away. So it's convenient to have parking on both sides of the street. That is a amenity, but it would also, as a side effect, help to reduce the traffic speed. I understand there has been a request that I believe it's before the parking board to put a 4-way stop at Wisconsin and Congress. Or at least there was a traffic count being taken at that intersection. So that, there has been discussion about that. But yes, we do want the speeding addressed, and we are planning on doing everything we can until it is taken.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Sounds like Transportation Committee will have some something to handle on this?
Yeah,
Mr. Rabbit?
I just wanted to add too, I know over the years, the Transportation Committee has, looked at a number of things at the intersection of Wisconsin and Congress. But I did want to point out, because I'm not sure if council is aware, but the DOT currently has contractors working throughout the city taking traffic counts for their biannual update. Biannual, that's every other year, right? Yes. Biannual updates to the traffic counts. So if you've driven anywhere in the city in the last probably 3 weeks, you've seen a lot of tubes out. That's because the DOT is doing their biannual traffic counts in the city of Oshkosh right now. So that may be what you have seen out there, as well as the DOT project being taken underway.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next agenda item, future agenda items, Red Earth Project on Lake Butamore Drive update. This is City Manager Roloff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just primarily for our new council members, because the meeting before you were seated as council, the council had approved the Red Earth development on Butamore Drive that have 3 stories to their building. Ms. Nyforth and her staff have been meeting with the developers, and I had an opportunity to sit in on one of the meetings recently, and they've developed a design for a 3-story, but the costs for the additional roof to essentially flatten the building by 1 story and spread it out, additional roof and the same amount of cost for elevators in a 3-story building. A 3-story building has elevators just like a 4-story. So those additional costs, and then those costs that didn't go away, as well as 100 fewer units as a result of the change. They've reported to me, and I don't have an exact number, but they reported to me that this would require a significant shortfall, and they would be seeking a subsidy, and I assume what that means is through TIF. If that's the case, I felt it was appropriate to report that to you before they submitted anything in final format, because if they're making a request for TIF, that's going to start the process, and yeah, I want to make the council aware of that before we went any further.
Councilmember Bulow,
You just didn't clear me again.
Oh, I have been off my game this
No
evening.
problem.
You sure you don't want to speak on this one?
I'm good for, I can let you go first.
Okay, sounds good. You said the magic word, City Manager Roloff, the potential for TIF request in regards to this development. Given that, I'd like to request at the nearest convenience a closed session to discuss the bargaining options, strategy, parameters, and possible terms of what that might look like. Any questions?
I don't disagree with you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I'm concerned about,
Okay. So at the
about
nearest,
a request, and
nearest convenience, if you can schedule one. Councilmember Esslinger.
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe this will be part of that discussion. I don't know, but again, I was not on the council when this came forward, but wasn't there a plan that the developers had where they felt that would cash flow based on what they wanted to do, and then it was modified, and now they're finding out that the modification will not cash flow? So my question is, can they go back to the original plan that they had to cash flow, and we can avoid that whole situation?
that would be a decision for the council. And if the council were to do that, I would suggest that you renotice the neighbors there, because as those of you know about it, they were pretty passionate about it. I wouldn't just dismiss it and say, well, put it on the next agenda and do it. I think council is appropriately, with the mayor's comments, it's appropriate to discuss what terms you would consider. If the answer is you don't want to consider anything through, or what price that would be, because really you can only talk about the terms and conditions. You can't talk about the policy decision. So that would have to come before the seven of you in an open session. So that's the nuance. So that may be an outcome that we would have to come back.
But I mean, can't that question be asked of the developer? That's a yes or no question. Can you,
I
can you?
think the developer would be more than happy, because that's what the developer requested. but
Well, that's the
council-
question.
The council's the one who flattened the building, that's the term I use, not them, but, yeah, I mean, I think the developer would very likely want to go back to that, although it's been 5 months since that was last discussed, but I wouldn't be surprised a bit that they would be open to that.
Councilmember Stevenson.
I don't know if you need a second or anything, but I do think this one merits a closed session if we're going to be talking negotiating and TIF incentives for this one. So I'd be all on board with having a deeper conversation in a closed session item. And then, like you said, if anything comes out of that, we would ensure to do our proper notices to the neighbors and things of that nature. So.
I'm out of the office Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week at a conference, so our earliest convenience would likely be the next council meeting. So if that's okay.
Your call if it's before or after, but.
Yeah, I'm concerned that the length of time that we may need to do it afterwards, because I worry that we really need to be done. If we do it at 5 o'clock, we got to be done by 1:45, and we were already squeezed a little bit tonight, so I would suggest that it be afterwards, and then we'll just do it that way.
Okay, Councilmember Ford's up next.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the closed session, and my only plea is that we make sure that we have as detailed information as possible from the developer on costs. I think I don't know what capacity you have for that, but that's going to be absolutely crucial. Because I don't know is not a good answer. And then also, I mean, we go into that meeting with full information about other TIFs in the area to improve infrastructure that might impact that project. Those are in our long-term plans. So I think that's going to be absolutely essential too, to make sure that we're able to make a decision with full information.
Very good.
Okay. If there's nothing else on future agenda items, we have a future workshop, 2024 budget workshops. These will be two of the final budget workshops. These are Monday the 30th and Tuesday the 31st of October. These are all-day events, roughly 8 to 4, 8 to 4:30?
Pretty much 8 to 4.
They are full day right up here.
We'll get you home for trick or treating.
We'll take care of lunch on Monday and Tuesday.
And breakfast. We'll have a little
we'll
something. Get you here early.
If there's anything council has questions on, please reach out to Finance Director Van Gompel or City Manager Roloff beforehand on those.
Yeah, what were the dates again?
Oh, yeah, Monday the 30th and Tuesday the 31st. We'll get you out of here just in time to handle trick-or-treating duties.
We can go late.
Right? If there's nothing else for future workshops, we're on to council member announcements and statements. Does anybody have anything to announce or liaison from back and forth between boards? One thing I would like to just remind council liaisons or all my fellow council members, one of the roles as a liaison is to bring information back and forth. My bringing this up is not to tell you to speak more. It's to if there are, this is kind of a follow-up from a previous discussion earlier in the year. If there are attendance issues, one of your roles is to pass that information on to me, so we can have discussions regarding, I can reach out to those individuals who may be having challenges and make sure that everything's okay and/or look to try to fill those seats. When we did reduce the seat count on many boards and commissions, it did require us to make sure that we got people there to help move the city's business forward. So if there's anything you guys need to share, don't hesitate to reach out to me to let me know of any concerns you or staff has, so I can facilitate that discussion. If there's nothing else from us, I'll turn it over to City Manager for his announcements and statements.
Well, one of my announcements, even though it's been a week, we haven't had a council meeting since then, but the Dragon Boat Race event was a smashing success. I will be honest, I was a little worried for a while. I think several of us were, but the groups that worked together did a great job. Very well attended. You could tell there was movement from the farmers market down to the Leach and back, which I thought was part of the essence of the event. Councilmember Hayes and I talked afterwards, like, we got to get him back, and I spoke with Ms. Lee and Ms. Johnson the following day, and I was surprised they were not exhausted from all the work they did, but they were excited, and they they do have every intent of wanting to do the event here in Oshkosh again next year. And I know that was a question about whether they would come back. They absolutely want to come back, and I've spoken with a few other members of the committee, similar enthusiasm and excitement, so very happy with it.
No, I know several council members had the chance to attend. I did not, I was out of town, but heard nothing but positive remarks from those who attended and from within the community that it was a good day, and those who attended had a blast, and just wanted to actually piggyback on that and congratulate them on a well-run event.
Some of the council, yeah, I was going to say, some of them even got sore.
I nearly
a lot
got
of
roped
work.
into being the drummer on your boat. I was, but some kid stepped up and I backed off, but it would have been fun. And I have my outstanding issues if you have any questions about that, but that kind of took the thunder out of my outstanding issues report.
Sounds
That's
good.
all I have, Mr. Mayor.
If there's nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Come on.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.